All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to A New Crusade. Today, I am back with Rob from Avoiding Babylon for the second time here on my channel. We've gotten to know each other a little bit better since then, so hopefully this conversation will be a little bit smoother than last time, although everyone liked the conversation a lot last time, too. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I hear we both have had a couple big events in our lives since the last time, huh?
Yeah, so what's it like having a new child? How's the new baby?
So 4 is not significantly different than 3. 3 was significantly different than 2, but 4 isn't. 4's been good so far with little Sebastian. We just had him baptized on Sunday,
Congrats.
and that went really well. That was a good weekend. Got to see Anthony, which we don't get to see him very often, and got to meet his wife for the first time, and then got to meet a lot of people who've been watching our show for 3 years. So that was really awesome too.
Yeah, that is nice. I guess I didn't realize that you hadn't had Anthony met your wife and your family?
No,
Okay, so this is the first time
hmm
it's gone completely on both sides. That's
yeah,
really nice.
he met my oldest son a couple weeks ago when we met in Detroit, but that was the only other family member of mine he's met.
Oh, wow, that's really nice then. Did he stay with you guys or did he just stay in the area?
Well, so we had to drive down 4 hours for the baptism, and
Mhm.
he had to fly in. So we just got hotel rooms in the same hotel
Got it. And where was the baptism?
in St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Okay. So I know that you were talking about having difficulty figuring how you were gonna do all of that. What was
hmm
the issue? Was it specifically that you wanted the old baptism?
Yeah. So um, starting with our second child was the first traditional baptism we had, and that was in 2021. Had to be 4 or 5 months before Traditionis Custodes came out. So we had a priest who was about half an hour from us, who had taught himself the Latin Mass over COVID, over the lockdowns, and had been doing a once a month TLM. So he had learned the traditional baptismal rite, and he had done it once on one of his nieces or nephews. So I asked him if he would baptize our second in the traditional rite, and he said yes. And after we had done that, and we just knew that we wanted all of our future children baptized that same way. But then Traditionalis Custodes came out, and our diocese at that point, there's only one weekly Latin TLM in the diocese, and the diocese was able to get a dispensation for that. So we kept the one diocesan TLM, weekly TLM we had. But the priest that had been saying it nearby us once a month got moved, I think, 2 weeks before Traditionis Custodes came out. So then, of course, that doesn't allow any new masses that weren't already established to be said. So we have the one TLM in our diocese, which is 2 hours away. But as part of TC, our diocese does not allow any other traditional sacraments. No traditional confirmations, no traditional baptisms, nothing like that. We've asked for a traditional baptism in our diocese for our last two kids, just to at least let them know there is a desire there, but we were denied each time. So then the next nearest set of TLMs basically is 2 hours further south of our diocesan TLM. So that's 4 hours one way total, away from us. And so that's down in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And one of the parishes that does the TLM down there happens to be the parish I grew up in. So
Hmm.
I knew, I know the priest of that parish, and my dad's funeral was TLM Requiem Mass was said there. So we've been able to get our last two children baptized there.
Okay, that's nice. So you had written or sent in to your local just to kind of get I guess the message going or just to try to grease the wheels or whatever
Make
you
sure
do.
they at least know that there are, you know, people here that would like that.
Yeah. Taffy wants to know who was better behaved, Anthony or Antony from Anthony Campbell.
It was nice getting to meet Antony for the first time. He drove like 4 hours as well just to come to the baptism, so that was
Wow, that's
really
awesome.
that was really amazing of him. Anthony was actually really subdued the day of the baptism and really well behaved. He's in group settings, at least groups he doesn't know very well. He's not as bombastic as you would expect.
That's fair. That's reasonable. He didn't want to scandalize all your family that was there.
Right. Yeah, especially my mom.
Yeah,
He seemed a little scared, my mom.
yeah, that's fair. So you said when your dad passed away, his funeral was in the TLM. Did he have a preference for tradition, or did you guys do that for him?
I did that for him. My relationship with my dad it was pretty rocky for the most of my life. He grew up Lutheran and converted from just to marry my mom, and he wasn't even like a really devout Lutheran either.
Mhm.
So he did not take the faith all that seriously, really at all throughout my whole life. But then he was actually diagnosed with MS before I was born, and that progressed and got worse, as he aged, and it led to other medical issues that caused drastic personality changes to where him living with our family was just well, it was more like it was a danger, to
Mhm.
everyone involved. Um, so yeah, so he left our house when I was about 15, and yeah, my relationship with him after that was really really poor, and I held a lot of things against him. But then when um, he died 3 years ago, and a few years before that, after my first child was born, I wanted my kids to at least get to know their grandfather. So I reconciled him with to the point where we were at least communicating and seeing each other, and he was seeing his grandson. But then his health continued to deteriorate to the point where he was in an assisted living facility, a nursing home, more or less. And he was down in the cities, and I made the decision where if he was going to be one of a situation like that, he should at least be nearby me as his oldest son, and his grandkids. So we moved him up to a facility by us. And in the last 2 months of his life, me and my kids were able to see him every day. So that was good. We were starting to reconcile there at the end of his life, and when he passed, like I said, as his oldest son, it was kind of all left to me. I was able to get him last rites before he died, so he did die in a state of grace, in communion with the church. But then, I knew I wanted a requiem mass for him, and I knew we were going to bury him down in the Twin Cities anyway, so just made sense to do that at the parish I grew up in.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really nice. I'm sorry to hear about that, but it's not. I guess it's the ending really ties a lot of it together, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. Bobby says, just go to an Eastern rite. You can have your ancient tradition and you don't feel like your bishop hates you. And I will say, as someone who is in an Eastern rite, that is a nice bonus.
the downside is the nearest Eastern Rite parish is kitty corner across the street from the nearest FSSP parish, and both of those are 4 hours away.
That's fair. That's a that's a reasonable complaint. Hope says, yeah, there are no recent or no Eastern Rite churches near you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's unfortunate. It's really weird how that happens sometimes because the Eastern stuff, a lot of the times you get them in random areas, anywhere that like the ethnics had a industry that existed, you know? um, like especially with a lot of the Slavs, like anywhere there
Yeah.
used to be a big steel industry, there's gonna
Mhm.
be like some dying Ukrainian church there.
Yeah, so like so where that FSSP and parish is, it's in northeast Minneapolis. So there was a lot of mills and a lot of immigrant workers on the Mississippi River and stuff like that there. So you have all within like a 1 mile radius, you have the FSSP, you have a I don't know if it's technically Ukrainian or Ruthenian, but yeah, a Ukrainian Catholic parish. You have a Maronite Catholic parish, a Melkite Catholic parish, and then you have all these old. I mean, they're all Novus Ordo parishes, but at one time it was like you had Saint Boniface was the German parish, and then you have you have a Polish parish and an Italian parish that was all within like a mile of each other. So
That's actually really cool. Are a lot of those buildings like decently nice?
yeah, yeah, they're all for the most part, that part of Minneapolis is it's not as old as what you see out on the East Coast, but it's they're all about 100 years old, so they were all built pre-council and in rather nice buildings. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, that's what I've experienced. It's been really weird there. I went to a Ukrainian parish in Wyoming, and it was basically just started by one family. Like there's the grandfather and he has 3 or 4 kids that all live in the same town, and
Hmm.
they just petitioned for long enough that they got their own priest. And then I think that a lot
Really?
of the more serious locals left the Novus Ordo in that area and started going to the Ukrainian because it was a better option.
Wow.
And so and that's funny because it's literally just that one family, and then that family all is giant, and they're having more and more kids and all that kind of stuff. So it'll grow exponentially. But yeah, it's they have the ability to do that, and I think that a lot of their, especially in America, a lot of their bishops really, really want them to grow and don't want them to die, and so they're really motivated in a way that a lot of the Latin bishops aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of Orthodox parishes somewhat close. Well, there's one an hour and 20 minutes away. There's one that I think is closed now that was a little closer, but like those are dying up where we're at too.
Mhm.
So there's not really many options other than Novus Ordo up here.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So how's the adjustment been on that drive? I always hear online a lot of complaints. I can't even get my kids to church with their hair brushed and their pants on. Like how could I possibly drive 30 minutes to the TLM instead of 15 minutes to the Novus Ordo? Like those are the type of complaints you hear a lot. And
Mhm.
so as someone who's been driving 2 hours in order to do everything that you can for your family. I'm curious how that experience has gone.
It's rough. Yeah, it's really rough. So the our mass it's a 1 p.m. mass, right? And it's a 2-hour drive away. Depending on weather, in winter, it can be 2.5 if depending on how slow you're going because of the snow. But so that means we have to leave by about 10:30 in the morning, and then if you leave right after mass, which mass gets over 2:30, you're not home until 5. But because we don't have much of anything nearby us, we make we unfortunately run a lot of errands, do a lot of shopping after mass, which I know on Sundays I know everyone, but it's like if we're in the city that one time a week, we might as well get what we need while we're there. But so it's a whole day process, right?
Got
You're wait in with well now 4 kids, all 6 and under. It's being in the car for 4 hours in a day is rough on them, especially when you're waking them up, getting them dressed, and putting them right in the car. By the time we get to mass, they are sick of being cooped up in the car. They're sick of sitting, so it's hard to keep them like engaged in the mass and not just running around in the back and stuff like that. And like there's not many Sundays where it doesn't like frustrate me to the point of I guess anger,
it.
at the hierarchy for kind of forcing us into such a situation. And I know we're not the only family at that TLM who is in that situation. So
Yeah.
it's rough.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you what so your oldest will be getting close to getting ready to start prepping for first communion. So I'm
Hmm.
curious what your plan is for that catechesis. Are you just going to stay an hour later, like for whatever class there is, or are you going to do it on your own? What's your plan for that?
I will probably be doing the catechesis on our own. So we do homeschooling, and they get religion class through that, and that's basically me going through the different levels of the Baltimore Catechism, more or less. So I'm hoping I can figure out a way to have them get First Communion through that.
Mhm.
Because there's yeah, I'm not sending him to our local parish's
Yeah.
education. I actually turned down an offer to do catechesis at our local parish because of what they were going to make me teach. So
Yeah. Jim says that Anthony can teach your kids. There you go.
well, I know Anthony had to do it with his own kids for confirmation.
Yeah, that's
So
that's unfortunate. Um, yeah, that seems like, man, I feel like one of the big advantages that I have is that one of the things that sucks is living where I live. It's very expensive and densely populated and everything, but I don't really have to deal with that. I have the Ruthenian church I go to, and then
mhm,
there's TLMs. And then if I really had to commute, I could. If neither of those existed, there would be another thing within an hour. So it's like there's a decent amount of options. It is really unfortunate to have to deal with that. And then same thing with the, like, I don't know, like get the one there. I'm actually surprised. The Nova Sordo around me has a decent amount of people, but
mhm,
like they have like a giant youth group, and like, oh, come and sing like worship songs on Wednesdays with the youth group, and they have the Vietnamese, and once a month they have it in like Swahili or whatever, and so
yeah,
it's really not catering to the local people, and so it's, or at least the historic local people.
right.
And so I don't know. It's just, it seems like such a mess to deal with. And yeah, a lot of it is like, even if you knew that the person teaching the curriculum was not going to try to lead your children astray, it's like the curriculum on its own can be risky.
Yeah, they'd asked if I wanted to teach. I think like sixth grade boys, and so I'm like, okay, can I use my own material, or do you have material for me to use? And they're like, no, you'll have to use this material. So I asked to take it home and read it, and I looked through the first chapter, and the entire first chapter for sixth grade boys, it wasn't about who God is, who Jesus is. It was about the Second Vatican Council. So like, really? 2000 years of history, and you think the first thing the sixth grade boy needs to know is about the Second Vatican Council? Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not teaching this, guys.
Yeah, that's rough. Well, especially it's funny because it's always the idea, I guess, is that the trads make a big deal out of what happened 60 years ago, and it's like, well, I guess not. I guess you're kind of, it's, everyone with a sense actually knows it's defensive, but that really proves it.
Yeah, it's like, and I'm not asking you to teach about the Council of Trent in the first chapter. Instead, I'm thinking, maybe more scripture or something.
Yeah. Yeah, like go over how many books are in the Bible, and like let's read through like a gospel account or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was bad.
Yeah. I was talking with one of my friends recently. Or I was at like a dinner, and all the guys were talking about education. And we were talking about how, like, at a certain point, it's good for a boy to like be in a school so that he can kind of like be with other boys and kind of
Mhm.
have that. But then we were also talking about, okay, well, then what's the solution? Because are you sending your kid to public school? Are you sending them to Catholic school? And we had, with the basic conclusion we had come to, you would almost be better off sending your kid to like a conservative Protestant school where you could tell them, these people are Protestants and they believe some kooky things, and we don't believe that, and this is why we don't believe that. Than you would be where they hear, oh, this is what Catholics believe, and it's just something that's completely false, getting like
Yeah.
some modernist or some, sometimes the Catholic schools hire teachers who aren't even Catholic, so, and you don't want them to have that false idea of what the faith is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know of a fair number of Catholic schools that hire non-Catholics for whatever reason.
Hmm.
It's you almost wonder if the British and like the old school Yankees had the whole boarding school thing right.
Hmm.
To where at a certain age you send your boys off to some a heavily a rigid like boarding school, almost that's militaristic in a sense, kind of.
Yeah.
I think they had something there, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I have friends in who, or I have a couple friends who are members of the TFP, like they work for them full time, and
Mhm.
they have St. Louis de Montfort Academy in Pennsylvania, I think, and that's a boys' boarding school. I think
Okay.
it's mid elementary school up to high school, and that's really cool. I mean, all the boys are wearing like blazers and dress pants full time. They do classical fencing, like it's a very classical kind of education, and so
Yeah.
that I think that something like that's really cool. There's stuff out there, but I mean, literally, they just like they couldn't take everyone. I think they take like 50 kids a year or something. So it's like it's unfortunate, but I really do think it's a shame there's not more of that because that's a really difficult decision, and a lot of people will
Mhm.
just for their kids' education too. And there's oh man, I don't know. It's rough. Paul says, yeah, fake Catholic school is worse than secular school. Yeah, that's another thing too. You even sending them to something like public school, and you just go really really hard on the catechesis, and then send them to the school with the best sports or something. Like at a certain point, you're really that seems like a better cost benefit analysis to me than you
Then
know
Catholic school, yeah.
yeah, in a lot of instances. Um, yeah, I do like the outfits they wear, honestly. Um, fencing is not gay, it's classical fencing. Anyways, so moving on a little bit from that, let's see here.
Moving on from the gay fencing.
Yeah, yeah. Boxing would be cool, but maybe that would be a little bit less gay.
Yeah, yeah, boxing. I could see that.
Yeah, boxing or wrestling, but I don't know. Boxing, when the ages range from third grade to high school, boxing is probably a little bit more difficult to safely regulate. Um, so I'm curious, how are you feeling, generally with the political situation? It's seems to just be getting more and more disappointing from my perspective. I'm curious how you feel.
So after the Charlie Kirk assassination, I was hopeful that we were actually at a moment in the country where maybe we could get some stuff done, right? And I'm not saying like I thought we have suddenly had some sort of ability to really like fix the country, but like maybe we have enough political will to at least set back the stuff that's been going on for a little longer.
Mhm.
That's now what are we 2 weeks? Yeah, basically 2 weeks later now. No, no, that's all gone already. It's been 2 weeks, and it looks like we wasted that opportunity. So, I think we're basically in a spiral to where events like that are gonna happen at a ever more increasing rate until we're in basically constant low intensity conflict. Whether or not that leads to like a non or less violent color revolution, or whether that leads to full out civil war, I don't know. But I don't think we get out of this one intact.
Yeah, Taffy knows that we're actually getting something done. Erica Kirk raising large sums of money and being an inspiration. Lila Rose having all of her best friends help her throw a ball even after it gets canceled. That's the real success that we're having right there.
Unbelievable.
I think it's really unfortunate. I feel like Donald Trump had not a complete blank check, but a very high roof on the check that he could have written. And it's not even like he chose to just write a lower number. He just chose not to cash it at all.
Exactly.
He chose just to rip it up or shred it. Like you don't. I mean, it wouldn't have been possible for him to go full like Bukele or anything like that, just because of how big our country is. But he could have gone halfway or 25% of the way. He could have done something.
I mean, we haven't seen one Antifa member put in jail.
Yeah.
Are you joking me?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
They don't even they say they don't know where the what's his name's boyfriend girlfriend thing it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
We could have had yeah.
Yeah. I don't it really I mean, I do genuinely think part of it is that who used to say it? Gavin McInnes used to say it's like Revenge of the Nerds. Some people always compare it to like Idiocracy, obviously, and it's like really what it is. Like I see nothing redeeming in like Kash Patel, for instance.
No.
Cash Patel is just a complete failure, and obviously for a dozen reasons does not belong in our government. For example, when you can't catch these people, what good are you for? Why are you spying on us? Why are you, like, why do we
If we're
even,
gonna have the Patriot Act, can you at least use it to arrest the troons? Like, come on, guys,
yeah,
please.
if you're gonna have a boot, could you at least stomp on the bad guys with the boot? Like,
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Paul's correct that Cash would be more at home running scam call centers.
It's yeah, he's not wrong.
Yeah. And I think that, when Donald Trump's first presidency was over, a lot of people were like, man, that was really disappointing. And it's 5 months into or what is it? No, 9 months into this one. And you're
Yeah,
like, man, this is really disappointing,
it is at least as disappointing so far.
Yeah. So, and I think one of the worst things is that he hasn't even, there's been no Brett Kavanaugh installation. There's been no Amy Coney Barrett installation. And there's nothing like that on the horizon. Although Amy Coney Barrett has been a disappointment largely.
Yeah, she has been.
So just from like a practical perspective, there's not even anything, productive being lined up.
Mhm.
It just seems like, I guess, a lot of people around Trump maybe seem to be trying to set up their own careers. I'm sure JD is trying to make the most of it however he can. But even then, I fail to see him being a based Catholic, who's going to take over the system and win for us.
Yeah, I mean, what have we really gotten so far out of the administration? Let's see. Walmart has banned food dyes, so that's good, I guess. We really haven't seen mass deportations. We have a lot of people deciding to leave themselves, and a lot of people deciding not to come here, so that's good. The $100,000 visa thing sounded great initially, but that turned out to kind of have the rug pulling out from under it too. Even so, we've really gotten nothing. I mean, what Hegseth is doing with the military looks like he's heading in the right direction there. But if it's just going to be used to bomb a country to get more oil again, I don't know if that's great.
Did we even get the oil though? Isn't that
No, we
what?
didn't even get the oil.
So we didn't even get the oil.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, disappointing. Although I guess it keeps Jason's. The less oil we take from the Middle East, the more money Jason makes. So there's at least some benefit there. Yeah. What about in the church generally? I'm curious what your general feelings are. I think that yesterday was the first really big scandal that wasn't completely overblown from something that Pope Leo said.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was too hopeful, because I always thought we were not going to get a Francis 2.0, but I just didn't see any of the cardinals that could possibly be elected being something substantially different than a JB2, a Benedict. I do think Francis is a little bit of an aberration overall. And I don't think Leo is going to be Francis necessarily, but I guess while I wasn't hopeful, I was glad for the reprieve.
Mhm.
It was nice after all years with Francis to have a few months where you could really just I can't even say live as a Catholic, because the hassle of trying to get my kid baptized and going to mass every Sunday, that was still a pain in the butt. But you could almost act like things were somewhat normal, at least from with how I grew up in the church.
Mhm.
Not that I ever knew what was normal prior to the counselor or anything like that, but you could kind of fool yourself up until yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how.
So it's disappointing in that sense. Not that I thought it was going to be anything else. I just wanted a little bit longer to pretend like it could maybe be something else.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, Bobby says he's hoping for at least a Benedict. Yeah, I think that I do agree with Anthony, at least, though, that in the long run, in 100 years from now, we're better off continuing down where like accelerationisting than we are with a Benedict. And especially because I do think it's reasonable. A lot of people are saying they still think that he's going to go and open the doors on the Latin Mass. And if he does, and then continues down the path, then that at least gives everyone who gets irritated a place to go. And I think that giving them a place to go that isn't just leaving the church is very important.
Yeah, I think those of us in the trad circles like to kind of pretend that Traditionis Custodes wasn't wasn't a hit, like that we're still going to be growing like we were before it and things of that nature. But I think if we're really honest with ourselves, like Traditionis Custodes, after the initial kind of backlash, it was starting to be effective in its goal.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. When you don't have a Latin Mass to go to nearby, then then you don't have a Latin Mass to go to nearby. You can't, it can't grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to get as many new people into tradition if it's just simply not available. You will have Novus Ordo masses that start to try to provide that sort of atmosphere through use of Latin and chant and things of that nature, and people will end up thinking that is all they need, and they will settle for less than actual tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think lifting of TC would, even if everything else continues poorly under this pontificate, is still a win in that sense, and would allow us to rebuild tradition and fight against modernism better than if we have to continue to suffer under the restrictions of Traditionis Custodes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to Taffy for gifted memberships. He gifted 5 memberships, and there's 20 people watching, which means 25% of you now get to become members. And and now I have to do something to make it worth it for you guys to stick around.
that just means more work on your part.
Yeah, that's okay. I need to do more work anyway, so that's fair. Here's something I think that's interesting. Let me find it. Cigar Mode said, President of the United States wish Mary a happy birthday and publicly acknowledge St. Michael. And I do think that those are good, just because those are inherently good things to do.
Yeah.
I think that those are good. I think the issue is that they're obviously, in my opinion, at least motivated.
It's political.
From a political and like a completely Machiavellian, point of view. And I don't really see that being a genuine, act.
Yeah, like you said, when something is, those acts are inherently good, right? So like they are good.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with in a sense the whole spectacle around Charlie Kirk's memorial. Like, yeah, it was a spectacle. It was very Protestant, very kind of secular in that Americanist sort of sense, but still being able to, mention the name of Christ and talk about Christianity in public in such an arena is still a good thing overall.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're not like lulled into a false sense of accomplishment or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think there are a lot of people who are, but I think the fact that everything else is getting so bad is really waking a lot of people up. And you're always, one of the big things I think is that you kind of have to know where to fight your battles. A lot of the people who are going to sit there and waste your time to like try to convince to be on your side aren't worth having on your side anyways.
Yeah.
It's not worth convincing Lila Rose supporters to stop supporting her. The people it's worth, speaking to are the ones where you go, did you know she makes $370,000 a year? And they go, what? Those
Right.
talk with that person. The person who immediately starts covering for her, you just go, you're gay, and you walk away. And that is, we're having the wisdom to do that. I think is the difficulty, at least for me.
Well, it's like there was a tweet earlier this week. I don't remember who by, but it was someone who a Protestant who had recently either just converted or just decided to convert, and he said, more along the lines of, it was all the Catholics on Twitter, on YouTube, responding to the false accusations of Protestants over and over and over that finally, convinced him. And, when we argue with someone like Indiana Brunner or Sola Chat or whatever, those guys on Twitter or anywhere online or in public, yeah, we're not trying to convince that person because
Mhm.
most of those people have proven they act in bad faith anyways. But you don't know who's watching from the sidelines, who else you might convince, and that's really why you do it. And it's not just trying to convince someone, a Protestant, to convert. You know, there may be Catholics, you know, who don't know their faith that well, that learn a lot more from about their faith by seeing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good for that. I think that there's a lot of people that, and the faith is a little bit different than politically, because politically all of the change has to happen from the top down.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, if you don't have someone who's good, who's going to win to vote for, like, canvassing and door knocking is completely useless,
Mhm.
right? And so, but the faith is different because each individual soul actually matters. And so it actually is good if you can convince five people, if you personally can convince five people to become more traditional, or to do things like that. And obviously you have, your show, other people's shows, Taylor Marshall, all these people are able to kind of force multiply that and make it more effective, I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen a big push from a lot of people. I mean, it's still growing, definitely, but I think it's really interesting to see how aggressively certain places die and watching people kind of switch over. I've seen, in my own parish, there's a lot of families who previously didn't care. And, some of them, there was one family and they had had two children out of wedlock, and then they like decided to convert, basically to become serious, and got their marriage convalidated, got their new kid baptized, like everything within like 6 months.
Yep.
you know? And
I mean,
so,
that's basically my story.
mm, yeah. And so I think that there's, that entire family, all of a sudden there are five new Catholics. Some of them were
Mhm.
technically already baptized, but, and that's a very big deal. Now, those people who have three kids are going to keep having more kids. I think that's all really good. I was talking with Ryan, who did the debate on your guys' show, about the population size.
Yeah.
And, that's where we can have really big wins too, is just, the more people we have having kids and all that kind of stuff. Although it's really unfortunate. There's lots of difficulties just besides people not wanting to have kids with, that kind of stuff these days. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I guess another question. I'm curious. So you were talking about you don't see the general state of the United States kind of moving forward positively. Obviously, our first video, we had kind of done that exercise about how we thought it would split, talking about that. Um, is there anyone you see immediately at this point who you see that could possibly represent people like us? I think that from a media perspective, I think, you're older, so you might disagree, but I think that, like, I see Nick Fuentes and I'm like, for me, he's close enough that I am happy to send videos of him to my friends and kind of
Yeah.
put money behind him interpersonally. There's a few people like that, but he's the only person who really has any actual movement. And in the actual political sense, I don't see anyone in the political class who I would feel comfortable supporting publicly.
Yeah, I agree. There's no politician out there that I feel actually represents my interest, really, in any real sense. There are those who maybe represent it more, or at least are opposed to those who really are, like, you know my enemy in a sense. Um, but I think you're right. I think Fuentes is probably the closest.
Mhm.
Um, I have not watched him a great deal. I watched his comments right after Charlie Kirk. And that was, I think, overall what he said there was really, really good stuff, actually. But I haven't watched him a great deal, and most of my issues with his movement, if you want to call it, tends to just be the people that like him a lot.
Mhm.
The groypers, for lack of a better term. And not that all groypers are that I dislike them all or anything like that. But there are some of those who, and maybe it is just a generational divide on the whole sort of like irony type of humor and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
but I think he is probably the closest, like you said, that has some sort of movement or base of support.
Hmm.
Um, I don't see anyone else really doing it,
Hmm.
like he's doing it. That not to say that I think he's doing it perfectly or would be, the one to support in the future. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But I think we need something more along the lines of that than what we have currently.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's when you're based Catholic is someone like JD Vance who is, not even loyal to his own culture, whether that be like ethnically or whether that be religiously. I mean, I know he converted after he got married, but he's someone who seems kind of ashamed of his faith, and people are expecting me to want, like, people are chanting like JD for king and I trust in JD Vance and this and that. And I'm like, dude, he doesn't even have the balls to like proudly take his children to mass.
Right.
He says that he
Right.
feels bad taking his wife and children to in front of Jesus. Like, that's just insane. I can never imagine saying that.
Yeah. I mean, has he had his kids baptized?
There's no information I've found supporting that.
I mean, I suppose in a sense it would probably be better at this point if he hasn't, because he would have had to have made a promise to raise them Catholic if he had. You know what I mean? So yeah, if you can't even bring your wife and children to mass, then how do I expect you to bring a whole nation to Christ?
Hmm. Yeah. Let's see. What did someone asked? JD actually said that. Yeah, there's an interview of him talking, and he's saying that he feels bad because Usha didn't marry a weekly churchgoer, and that's not what she signed up for. Even though what she signed up for is obviously to listen to her husband, and her husband is now Catholic. So I don't know, whatever. I have a hard time finding anything respectable about JD personally. Let's see. Joe says, "Did I watch KH?" Oh,
Kennedy
Kennedy Hall
Hall and Tim
and Tim
Flanders.
Flanders. Yeah, I don't want to, just because some of these people are friends with Rob, I don't want to go too hard on it. But I found it to be seriously lacking, and I
Uh,
think that this is partially what Rob was talking about. I think that some people, I think that Kennedy really does not vibe with the Zoomer personalities and the Zoomer humor and all that kind of stuff. Him specifically as a person, and he's the first person I interviewed. I have a good interpersonal feelings towards Kennedy Hall. I just think he especially doesn't get it more than a lot of other people, and I think that kind of shows. And then I also thought some of his prudential decisions or takeaways, as far as like his opinion calling Nick Fuentes a racist and stuff like that, like I just found that completely unserious. But like I said, I don't want to attack someone.
Well, so I mean, like you said, I am friends with them, and I mean, that they're incredibly out of touch when it
Hmm.
comes to that subject. Um, like I said, I'm no big fan of Groypers as a whole, or at least how they tend to at least portray themselves online.
Hmm.
But but you can't just dismiss Fuentes in his movement.
Yeah. Taffy says you're going to become a groper and you'll become BFFs
Uh,
with
th-
Mindset.
I don't think I'll ever be very close friends with Pine Sap, but that's more due to personality and temperament than anything else.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it was funny. Speaking of Kennedy, I was going to bring this up, but this is a perfect segue. Kennedy had said something, or maybe it was related to that conversation. But I said he was saying something about the Groypers, and I had basically said, I think that obviously anyone who knows them, and even most of them, will acknowledge that they a lot of them create bad optics for the rest of them, and
Yeah,
the ones who are good people will acknowledge that.
agreed.
Um, and I'd said, but I think I told him, if you talk with them, I think you'll find yourself impressed by the points that they have to make. And I said, Pine Sap and American Reform. And they're two people I've talked with on my channel. And that's why I feel confident endorsing them. And he had said, Pine Sap called me a Jew when I critiqued the Novus Ordo. And this is just a perfect example of how it didn't line up. Pine Sap reposted it and was like, yes, I did. And then all of the Groypers were calling Kennedy Hall a Jew. And so it's like, and that's a joke. but I know that Kennedy would not have appreciated it as a joke, and that's just where there's just clearly a serious difference,
Yeah. Like, I agree with a lot of the criticisms of, say how Groyper should maybe act more virtuously online. I know I could be more show more virtue online as well too. But I really don't understand the criticism of like the struggles that young men have to deal with now that I didn't even have to deal with, when I was in my early 20s. Things,
Mhm.
things like that. Um, saying that they just need to, for lack of a better way to express it, pull up their bootstraps and stuff. I think that's really out of touch with just how bad things are, um, in America and Canada and other areas in the West today.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's here. Let me put up. I'm gonna put up some positive comments real quick before I talk a little bit more. Jim says he likes when Groyper's like his tweets. Darmode says he's Groyper adjacent. What else do we have here? This is Cars and Catholicism is right. He said Groypers have some of the funniest Twitter handles. Like some of them are like veiny hot dog burning in a under a blowtorch Groyper or something. You can't really be mad about that. um, let's see.
Well, yeah.
Robbie Stack more virtuous like
Yeah.
Anthony.
Oh man.
Really quickly address this from Paul, and then I have one thing I want to say. Where do I think Kennedy Hall went wrong with the racist assessment of Fuentes? He doesn't watch Nick Fuentes enough to know his full side of the story. I think it's in the same way. I think that there's two main things with Fuentes. I think one, it's his serious assessment of the situation, and I think it's very easy to make a well-founded traditional Catholic argument for why you're allowed to want to basically live in a community of people like you, and why you're allowed to not want your government to be against that. I
Yeah.
think it's a very easy argument to make. And then secondarily, I think that you can find all of the jokes distasteful, but I think anyone who's worked in a blue collar atmosphere for a specific period of time knows that racist jokes, quote unquote, have nothing to do with hating people of a certain persuasion or color. And I think that almost everything Nick says can be brought into one of those two camps. And if you want to bring up something that's not in those two camps, feel free to tweet it at me, and I'll try to make sense of it.
When I was growing up, my family made a ton of Polish jokes, which is funny because like my mom's side is like 25% Polish. You know what I mean? So like there was a bunch of Polak jokes, a bunch of jokes about the Serbs and Bosnians that lived, in our town and stuff like that. And the people that found them funniest were the Polacks and the Serbs and the Bosnians and everything like that. And to say it's substantially different, to be okay with those types of jokes and then jokes that make fun of a different race, I don't, I don't see the problem personally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there was even it's as recent. I think a lot of people say Gen Z this, Gen Z that, but Gen Z, I mean, in grand totality, we're pretty young, but I just mean that I'm probably someone within 3 years of my section of Gen Z are the last people to not really, really have constant access to the internet. And so, there still was a lot of unrestricted kind of Wild Westy, you're allowed to make jokes and you're allowed to say things. And so I think that a lot of the Groypers kind of come from that. And then a lot of the younger ones, the younger Gen Z or even the Gen Alpha, I guess some of them are getting that old, who are constant, who have only ever been online. I think that's where you see a lot of the craziness, because they've just been so henpecked and so crowded whole lives that they're just going crazy. And can you really blame them?
Maybe you can explain this to me. I guess my biggest area of disagreement with many of the Groypers anyways is like their seeming need to defend the Pope and defend the Novus Ordo at all cost.
Yeah, Yeah, this is what Bobby said.
Yeah.
Why do so many groypers tend to be Pope Splain or Novosordites? I think part of that is that they're I think part of it's that a lot of them are new converts, and so they want to justify that. I think part of it is that a lot of them are in like a Nick Fuentes personality cult, and they'll just as easily say that. And so I think when you don't criticize one person who's up there, I think it's fair that you don't want to criticize the other person that you like submit to, essentially. I think that some of them rightly see a lot of the distaste they're treated with by a lot of the older kind of trads, and don't like the way that, you know, Eric Salmon says things about Gen Z, Kennedy Hall will say things about Gen Z, that there's really a big disconnect there. And I think that they just say, okay, well, I'm not going to be trad then, you know. And I think there's part of them who do it just to be inflammatory because they like to be inflammatory about everything. So I think there's a wide range of things, you know. And I, as someone, I'll get in fights with a lot of people. I'll find groypers who block me, and then I'll realize, oh, they responded to something I said about the you know, my dislike of the Novus Ordo.
Right.
I'm trad and more of just a Novus Ordo disliker. Generally, I think. I mean, maybe I am more of a trad than I think I am, but I think that that's a big part of it, and it is unique. It makes them very unique, and it is interesting.
It is. I just find it ironic that so many of them are rightfully aware of some of the issues surrounding our elder brethren, for lack of a better term, and yet love a mass that has basically been proven to at least been created in part to not offend them.
Yeah, I think it's strange. I think that there are some people like, I mean, there are certain individuals I know who are much more like, obviously Christian Wagner is friends with a lot of groypers, and you might call him groyper adjacent or whatever. And he's he personally obviously attends Novus Ordo a lot of the time, but he's pretty willing and easily acknowledging he's a realist when it comes to acknowledging kind of the problems that exist, and tries to be as generous as possible. And I think he's kind of the best example of as far to that side as you can be without just being unreasonable or purposefully inflammatory. One quick thing, Cars and Catholicism said, the one thing with racist accusations is thrown around so loosely it has no meaning. Like I argued with Mike Lewis yesterday. I was making fun of him because he said that people who said Pachamama was idolatry were just racists who you know, like who thought that the Amazonians were like savages or something. And I was like, that's the most laughable excuse. You really think that Taylor Marshall is a racist, that he just hates brown people? Like, I mean, Mike Lewis really thinks that, but that is just so insane.
I know a lot of you know, Hispanics and Latinos that were just as upset at Pachamama as you know, pasty white people like me.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. I can't possibly deal with that. There's nothing. I even said, I don't know if she was joking, but I said to my mom, I said something about, you know, if you marry a Latin woman, that's what you get, about someone we know who's having problems with his wife and she's Hispanic.
Yeah.
And she said, that's racist. I'm even like, I don't even know if my mom's joking when she's saying that. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't, but I'm like, I just don't. There's no amount of that's racisting that would stop me from, at this point, like saying things. I don't know.
One of my good friends has a Latino wife, and he would agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I get for marrying a Cuban.
Yeah. Jason is only racist against Brazilians. I don't know. Jason likes to bully Nick for being a super Mexican, I think. Let's see. Paul says Pachamama was gay like fencing.
True.
And then Taffy says that I get to argue with all these people and I don't get blocked. But that's not completely true, because Taffy got blocked by Eric Salmon for saying we're going to send him into a nursing home.
That's funny.
But
I'm blocked by Mike Lewis, and Mike Lewis shows up in our comments all the time. Mike Lewis texts Anthony all the time, and yet I'm still blocked by Mike Lewis.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's really the Anthony. It's weird because Anthony gets blamed for what you say, but then Anthony never gets blocked. I don't know how Anthony does it. Genuinely, the way he like he's talking to that congressman guy, the what's his name,
Hale,
Hale or
Christopher
something,
Hale.
Mike Lewis. Like, I genuinely cannot, like, I cannot interact with them and also keep myself from like basically entering like a sinful level
Yeah.
of rage at them.
I mean, at this point, it's a good thing Lewis still has me blocked, because if he unblocked me, it would only take a day for me to get blocked again.
Yeah,
And I would
exactly.
say something I shouldn't. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But Anthony does it because so Lewis has actually given us a couple of really good inside scoops a few times.
Mhm.
So Anthony does it just to have connections when he needs them.
Yeah.
And it's worked.
Yeah.
It's worked. We got some good inside dirt on a few people from Lewis.
Yeah, well, I try to be friendly to everyone, and I've had a wide variety of people on my show, and I'm in, I have good relations with a lot of people, but it's just like the explicitly subversive people, like I just cannot. Modern Boethius. The only reason I am not like a complete, like, I don't want to like spit on Pope Respecter is because he's based on like three things. And so I can like slightly tolerate him. But anyone who's just like openly subversive like that, I don't have the self-control I just have to mute them all because I can't read their stuff and not like just become viscerally angry.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I'm starting to get that way with a lot of the set ace too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm starting to feel that. Anthony sips for Lewis. Does Mike Lewis have beef with
So
what's his
Mike Lewis is the reason he who shall not be named. We made peace with him behind the scenes so that no one got sued over things. Mike Lewis is the reason why he's not a deacon anymore.
Oh, okay.
The way he was acting towards Mike online, Mike shared with the diocese and got him removed from active ministry.
That makes sense. Yeah, and he definitely seems like a type of guy who never lets go of beef like that. That's wild.
Yep, which is why I don't want to start anything with him again.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Because he
completely
found who I worked for.
Yeah. Let's see here. So Joe just says it's because he's a greasy Sicilian and because, Anthony is at least. Yeah, I don't have whatever kind of grease him up, like be friends with everybody thing that he has. But I don't know. I think that we're kind of opposites in that way.
And I am too, which is why him and I work well together for whatever reason.
Yeah, for sure. So one thing, this is obviously a personal thing, so we don't have to go too far into it if you don't want. When I think it was right after Charlie Kirk. I don't know exactly, but obviously Majorian, Antony, Mike Pantile, me, we all kind of push or have been trying to push all the fitness stuff. And you recently said that you're, committing publicly to getting in shape. So I'm curious, how's that been going? What's your, how's it been? You've been working with Mike, I think.
But I've gotten advice both from Mike and Majorian. I used to lift a lot, so I do have a lot of knowledge there. It's more like, how do I need advice? How do I get back into it after like 15 years of not doing it?
Mm-hmm.
So I did find that we actually do have a semi-local gym. It's by where I work, so I joined that so that I'm able to go in and work out before work, which is nice because the early morning is basically the only time I do have due to work and streaming and family and stuff like that. So yeah, I hope to get in there 3-4 times a week in the morning to do cardio and some lifting, and before it snows here, I want to get outside a lot still and just use the outdoors as well to get some cardio in with hunting and stuff going on before snow.
Yeah, that'll be good. Nick says he's just happy to hear you talk. Yeah, I think that's what people appreciated about our initial talk as well, is that I think that, you can kind of, when you're not having to regulate yourself or regulate Anthony really more than regulate yourself. But, I think that you get to open up a little more.
Nick says he's going to come take me cross country skiing. Nick, I'll tell you right now, fine motor control and balance, things like no. I'm not good with stuff like that. Okay. I don't think it's going to end well for either of us.
Okay, if you're not going to do that, can we get a bare knuckle boxing match between you and Eric Ibarra?
I would love that. That sort of. I've always loved combat sports, so I'd totally be into that.
Yeah, that's what we need. We need to prove how trad everyone is. We need a trad charity boxing event put on.
I mean, even if it's just locker boxing, right?
Yeah.
Where we're just beating the crap out of each other in hockey, hockey masks and gloves. That would be fun too.
Yeah, that's fair. You like do you watch any combat sports?
No, I don't watch them.
Okay.
I was in like Taekwondo growing up, and I don't know if I do. That's one of the big problems with where we live. Like they just built a gym. Like we didn't have one until I think it just opened within the last 6 weeks. We definitely don't have anywhere for any like jujitsu or any other sort of combat sports, which sucks because I really would love to get into stuff like that, not only for fitness but just for self-defense purposes and things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that is one thing about living rurally. That's one thing I've thought too. You know, every guy sits there and goes, "Oh, I want to have a homestead. I want to have this. I want to have that." And I just go like, "Man, I wouldn't be able to do kickboxing. I wouldn't be able to do jujitsu. I wouldn't be able to do wrestling. Like, you know, you're gonna like. There's a lot of costs that you kind of have to pay to go and be your rugged individualist fantasy."
And with the way the world is, I'm not going to say like I want to continue living where I do. Right? Yeah, there are some big downsides, such as mass 2 hours away, grocery store an hour away, things like that. But there's trade-offs with everything in life. So
yeah,
do the children count?
Yeah,
we do love to wrestle.
Your kid counts.
Do you think the funniest thing is hitting me? Well, you know where in the way I react. It is the funniest thing in the world.
That's funny. I never really had in high school. Like my friends didn't do that, and then recently 3 of them moved into a house together.
Yeah.
And now we never did it when we were 16, but now we're on our 20. The 3 of them moved in together, and now I'll go over to their house and we're all like eating dinner. Just boom, they start smacking each other. It's now become a thing.
There was nothing. Depending on what side of it you were on in high school, nothing more funny or worse than just walking by someone and just tapping them real quick while they were standing in the hallway.
Yeah. The only super memorable one I've ever had was I was in middle school, and there was however long it was. I think we got like a 10-minute break at some point during the day.
Yeah.
And one of the kids got a running start and kicked the other one. And as soon as he got kicked, the bell rang for everyone to go to their class.
So he's just laying in the hallway all by himself.
He fell over and he's like on like the cinder blocks, like holding himself up outside on the wall. And everyone goes, "Sorry, bro, got to get to class," and just walks away. And he's just sitting there. And the guy who kicks him runs away, obviously. I was like, "Oh man, that's a rough one."
Yeah. So I know you just got married, so you don't have kids yet.
No.
But I'm telling you, investing in a cup is not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah, for real.
It really isn't.
Yeah. Taffy wants to know if the kid who got kicked in the nuts was Thursday.
Kind of random, but
I'm not going to explain that. I'll let everyone else come to their own conclusion on why he said that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have to get on it, and I do need an heir. I'm working on it. We'll get there. I famously got railed on when I said if people get to 1 year without a pregnancy announcement, I get suspicious, and a lot of people got very mad at me for saying that. So, I'm going to respectfully apologize for that and say don't expect anything out of me.
Hold on. So you got married in August. Okay. August 2026, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
If it hasn't happened yet, make sure to bring it up.
Yeah. So that's fair. Let's see. He said he made it to 1 month with his wife. There you go. That's awesome. I like to hear that. Chris is surprisingly, Chris is funny because, he's famous for having, religious hippie on and being her best friend and all that kind of stuff. But man, when you really
Catholic engineer.
yeah, Catholic engineer. When you talk to him one-on-one, he's surprisingly, I mean, him doing that was not based, but one-on-one, he's actually pretty based. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Is that Chris calling?
No, it's
The number of texts I've gotten from him in the middle of of a show I'm doing that he's watching. Like, you know what I'm doing right now. Why are you texting me?
he's like, dude, great video so far. I love this. He's like, dude, can you send me the contact for your guest? Yeah, Chris is funny. Yeah.
Nick.
Yeah, Chris had Catholic engineer on. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That making me laugh. Chris is he said Pine Sap redeemed him. Pine Sap is the real redeemed Zoomer. Yeah. I think a lot of people take he paid his dues by having someone based on. But I think that I have a lot of respect for Chris. I think that if you look at his list of guests, he's got a pretty impressive roster. And having Taylor Marshall on, he had a really good talk with Taylor Marshall. They talked a lot about the Knights of St. George. I really want to get involved with that. Troops of St. George. Yeah. Get involved with that. Get my kids involved in that when I eventually have kids. I think that's, if there's anything that really, really lasts, that really becomes Taylor Marshall's legacy, I would bet that more than his books and more than the content he creates, I bet you that's what ends up. If people talk about him in 200 years, I think that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking about starting a chapter at our local, not local because it's 2 hours away, but our nearest TLM. But I just found out that a church in that same area already has a group going. So I might get my kids involved in that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I had, especially because I had done Boy Scouts growing up, but I had never committed to it. And at a certain point, we switched troops, and it was just a little too homeschooled for my taste, like in a bad way,
A little too much Tylenol involved, guys.
Yeah, well, it was like, kids were like, yeah, it's pretty cool. My dad says I'm not allowed to get my driver's license until I'm an Eagle Scout. And there was a lot of that kind of just I don't know. It was just a little bit too much for me.
Come on, guys, just be normal. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, and it was kind of a bummer because the previous troop I had been a part of, all of the founding boys who were 5 or 6 years older than me, they were all swim team captain, valedictorian, high school football captain. And so, a lot of times Eagle Scouts, they're kind of like these studs. And that's what these guys were. They were kind of normal, outgoing kids. And then one of the kids was like, I grew out my hair for a year and then I cut it and donate it to charity. And that's my whole personality. And you're like, okay, that's kind of weird, bro. It's a bit of a shift. There's nothing inherently wrong with these guys, but you gotta, your wife says more driving, yippee.
I know. Yeah. I never got involved in Boy Scouts. One of my cousins, is an Eagle Scout. One of my good friends, who's one of my sons, a godfather, is an Eagle Scout. So what I'm about to say doesn't apply to those guys because I like those guys. But other than them, most of the guys involved in my area were just dweebs, for lack of a better term, and I'm real nerdy too. So maybe I shouldn't be throwing that out there against anyone, but they're not the kind of guys I'd want to be stuck in nature with. I'd be a little worried for my safety if they're my buddy in the buddy system. And
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's kind of funny. My grandpa was very nerdy, and he but he was in Boy Scouts, and it's you can kind of see back in the day the good it did for people. He talks about I mean, even now he's kind of nerdy, but it was clearly it kind of gave him tools. And you can even hear he talk about going shooting, going we used to go and drive Jeeps in the in the Rockies, and we'd go on Jeep trails, and we'd go and do 10-day backpacking trips and this and that. And so even someone who has kind of a baseline nerdier personality, it used to be so extreme, it really helped those kind of people kind of
You would round you out.
yeah. And then obviously it just gave a chance for the already like that guys to really go and excel even more. And so it's and I didn't really experience that. We only ever did car camping when I was doing it by that time. There wasn't even backpacking trips happening.
Yeah, I like the idea of scouting
Mhm.
as a whole, and something like the Troops of St. George seems awesome. But the Boy Scout organization itself is, I mean, just gotten done for at this point.
Yeah, Chris and Taylor Marshall were talking about it, and I think he had said something like the fact that the Troops is explicitly Catholic gives it a huge advantage, and I definitely think that's true. Keeps it from being as corruptible. As much as liberals and subversives can corrupt, outright atheism and rejection of religion will corrupt it a lot faster. Let's see. I'm going to read a couple more comments, and I think I'm going to finish it off for tonight.
Okay.
That's both done pretty early tonight. Let's see here. That's because the men of the boys were dweeby. Good men.
I think they mean the father of those boys.
Oh, yeah. That makes boys great, right? Troop selection is everything. Yeah, that's definitely true. My grandpa dropped out of high school before age 10. He was one of the most intelligent men he'd ever met. Countless books during his lifetime before he started suffering from dementia. Let's see here. Yeah, definitely. I think that obviously we've lost just a lot of the men who are there to lead are of a lower caliber than they were 60 years ago too. You're looking at if you were a kid in the 60s, there could have been people born before the turn of the century if they were really, really old, or born right in the beginning. They could have gone through both the world wars, and those are the guys teaching you how to be a Boy Scout. I mean, those are some pretty legit guys.
Yeah, I mean, well, my grandpa was never involved in scouts, but my grandpa's parents came over from Germany. My grandpa, they lived on a farm with no electricity, nothing like that. He only spoke German until the age of 6, and then learned English and dropped out of school before high school at some point. But he could make his own clocks. He could make his own clothes. He made his own camping trailer, like pop out camping trailer. Like, yeah, incredibly intelligent, incredibly self sufficient. Yeah, and you just don't have men like that these days.
All right, this is, I think, what I'm going to finish off with, unless there's anything that really, really.
Well, hold on. Do that, and then do Nick's comment.
Okay, sounds good. Oh, I'll do that. Grandpa was base. He never would have interviewed the Catholic engineer.
Poor Chris. We give Chris so much crap.
Yeah, sorry, Chris, but you're a tough guy. You can take it. Jim says T levels are down, and then Cat Cans rightfully says he's gonna get his tested before he admits that the T levels are down. And then the Analytic Catholic says, what do you think about TRT? I think there's a complication based on the fact that it might make you infertile, so you'd probably want to talk to your priest about it. But all I'm saying is that it's going to take very little argument to get me to hop on TRT when I'm in my 40s. That's all I'll say, Let's see. Chris says his T levels are high enough that he has 3 boys. I've heard actually that the higher your T is, the more girls you have. So you might want to think about that, Mr. Chris. But okay, wait, let me find. I lost that comment I wanted to read. Let's see here. Okay. In light of recent events, what is my EDC? It is not going to be impressing any of you guys.
Do you carry?
No.
Oh.
I carry my phone, my wallet, my keys, and AirPods. So I don't.
Not even a knife?
No, I hate having a knife.
Why?
Because it clogs up my pockets, and I'm like, I have like a gay fashion thing going on where I don't have stuff in my pockets.
Okay, so if it's about fashion, then you're definitely not wearing one on your belt, are you?
So I've in the past done it, and my issue there was that one, I know that California knife laws can be really, really rough, so you have to be careful with that. And then I don't like how it messes up when I thread my belt. Like I have to like take the knife off the belt and then pass it through the first couple belt loops, and then you thread it through
Oh
the
boy,
knife.
you're never carrying a gun then.
I know, it's just such a pain in the ass. So
Hold on. As a fashion lover, let me show you one way I've been carrying recently. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn off my camera.
yeah, sounds good.
Does it let me turn off my camera? Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you're good. Cars and Catholicism says a 4-inch or shorter blade. I didn't know Cars was from California. Yeah, I've not really. I've heard that a lot of the rules have to do with your concealment. So if you're concealing in a way that people don't like, then that's kind of where the issue is. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah,
This is my fanny pack.
yeah.
Not only do I have a full-size pistol in here, I also have a full first aid kit too.
Yeah, that's like the Wrangler Star solution right there. I like that.
Bobby. Come on, Bobby.
No, I think that's cool. My only thing is, if you tuck in your shirt, can you carry if you tuck in? Wouldn't it become visible?
Depends on the type of holster you have. They have inside waistband holsters that have the clip set up to where you can tuck in a shirt in front of the clips would be visible, but just barely.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna read a couple more and then we're gonna be all done. Cars and Catholicism is in Los Angeles, bro. Hit me up if you want to hang out sometime. I'm sure we could find something that makes sense. It's called a hip bag, sweetie. Or you can just be cool like Bug Hall. What does he have? He has like a chest rig. He has like a full on like legit chest rig. It goes pretty.
I have a few of those for the guns I carry out into the woods. Like I have a one for my 44 Magnum, one for my 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, one for my Sig 10 millimeter. So like when I go hunting, a lot of times I'll have one of those in a chest rig, just because I probably have a pack on in a waist belt from the pack, so trying to get a gun on my hip would be difficult. So chest rigs are cool, yeah, but it's hard to conceal those, especially in the summer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Chris says he'd have snacks in his fanny pack, and he says that Bug carries that rig everywhere.
He also said don't read the fanny pack comment, but good job.
Oh, I thought he telling me not to read Bobby's expletive right here, telling me to carry a knife. You know what? I'll carry a little tiny knife just for you guys, or I'll carry a knife just for you guys. Let's see. I'll give like a 1 week. I'll post on Twitter. I'll carry a knife for a week and I'll post about how I liked it. I think that's a good solution.
I suppose you can't even wear these aren't even legal in Minnesota, but little thing like this.
Oh, like a switchblade? No.
Yeah, but that's illegal in Minnesota too. So
no, I have a little knife here somewhere. We were opening up packages. I have a decent amount of knives. I just don't end up carrying them. I really should. My biggest thing, I started wearing a watch a while ago, and that was like the first thing that I used to never do that I started doing. And I was like, okay, I really like having a watch. And so maybe I just need to start carrying a knife, and then I'll be like, okay, I really like carrying a knife. One of my friends bought like a crazy tack light on like TikTok Shop or something. It was like $70. It's the kind that gets like so hot it'll burn you. And
yep.
Yeah.
If this thing stays on in my pocket, I'll be sitting somewhere and all of a sudden I'm like, oh no. I gotta throw it out of my pocket. Matter of fact, on the previous one of this, I melted the plastic lens on it in my pocket.
Yeah. So, I have some friends who've been getting into it. He was somewhere the other day. He was somewhere recently and he had the chance to use it. He was super hyped. And then we all went camping together and a bunch of us forgot lights. We just had our phones and he had
he was in his glory, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. Well, it has a clip on it. So he put it on right on the bill of his hat and he just clipped it on, was looking around. He was so excited.
You just need to get a fashionable gun.
Yeah, I
get
know.
a nice gun.
Well, I have a 227, which I could not conceal. I don't think. I think that would be. I also just don't like that gun very much, personally.
227, a Sig,
right? A Sig, right? Isn't that what it is? It's a 22. Is it a 226 and a 227? One of them's 9 mil, the other's 45. Or am I naming it wrong?
Yeah, the SIG 227 was basically a 45 caliber 226.
Yeah, that's what I have, and I don't like it. The person I got it because someone gave it to me as a gift, and he says he knows someone who might want it, and so he's going to trade me for a 1911. So I'm going to give him back the SIG, and he's going to give me a 1911. And I think I'm going to make that trade.
Otherwise, I'll buy it right off you.
There you go. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind a 227.
All right. Well, if he doesn't get back to me on it, maybe I'll talk to you about that. Yeah, I have a couple, but nothing that I would want to or could carry. And I guess I'll have to buy something. What I really need to do as far as guns is I have a receiver for a lower, I don't know all the words, I'm not into guns, for a AR that I need to build. And then I kind of want to look into a concealed carry. The issue is just that I feel like in California, there's a lot of, more than other places, there's a lot of risks with actually having to, use your concealed carry.
In what way? Like,
I just feel like, I feel like there might, if someone like holds up a liquor store and puts my life in danger in Texas, and I shoot them and kill them, I have a feeling that the jury might be, sympathetic. I have a feeling that like a jury around where I live is not going to be as sympathetic.
True. That you're probably not wrong. But you'd probably still rather be alive and in prison than not alive.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Good luck building out an AR in California. Because I mean, you have the 10 round mag limits, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And can they even have a pistol grip on them in California? I don't know if they can. The ARs can? Okay.
Yeah.
That must be Washington or Maryland where you can't have a pistol grip.
Yeah. I have like a Turk Nelly with a pistol grip. So I think if they do pistol grip
shotguns, probably ARs too. Yeah.
So, and then I have friends who have built them. The guy who gave them to us is like
he gave you a lower.
He gave me a lower. He gave me a Turk Nelly, and he gave me a 227. He's just like, he's in his 50s and he's not married, and he's a C-suite guy and just has way too much time, and so he brings everyone out to dinner and he gives everyone guns. And like I go to weekly dinners and he like supplies us with meat a lot of the time. So he's just a very generous guy.
I need better friends. All I have is Anthony.
Yeah. You need less friends scamming your audience for boat repairs, and you need more friends giving you firearms.
100%.
All right. What is this? You're
Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. No, I'm not in Michigan. Anyways, okay, let's see here. I think that's everything. I'm going to end it right here. Everyone, thank you for watching so much. If there's anything, I don't think there's anything else we really need to. No, it's just people talking about guns now. That's fine. So thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. It was nice to talk with Rob, kind of catch up, see where both of us are at. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to pay me money, feel free to sign up for a membership. Or if you want to leave a one-time thing, obviously there's the buy me a coffee. I'm pretty sure I have that linked. Go and watch Avoiding Babylon, although almost all of you came from Avoiding Babylon, and that's why you're my friends now. So good luck with me funneling anyone their way. But, go see Rob and Anthony on Twitter and on X. Anything if you want to plug or anything you want to talk about, Rob, go ahead.
No, I don't think so. I imagine many of you have probably seen our episode from yesterday, which was our second show with Father Ripperger. That was a really, really good one. Everything with Father Ripperger is great. Tomorrow, I don't know if we're having anyone on tomorrow, what we're talking about, but I know Friday, Anthony is planning on having Mike. Is it Pantile or Pantile?
Pantile,
yeah.
Very Italian. Yeah.
He's having Pantile on. I will not be on that because tomorrow's going to be my fourth night in a row streaming, and I want to spend time with the family on Fridays. But Anthony will be on Friday.
All right, awesome. Yeah, Nick, sorry, I either missed that or you said something embarrassing. All right, well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to end the stream. I hope you all have a great night. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.